All right, everybody, welcome to CyberBulls. We have a very special guest here today, and we have to welcome Galileo Russell. He's also known as Gali. He was an original Tesla retail bull, holding the distinction as the first retail investor to get to participate in the Tesla earnings call way back in 2018. And he also interviewed Elon as part of the Third Row podcast team way back in 2020. And today he's the founder of HyperChange, a financial talk show, and he's now running HyperGuap, a venture capital fund. Oh my gosh, you're just, in your words, always scheming. Gali, thank you so much.
Yeah, stoked to be here. Love scheming on Tesla and everything financial. So fired up. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get started with the first question, because you are what most people consider to be a original OG retail Tesla influencer, Tesla thought leader. What has happened to the retail community? We used to be all unified, fighting the FUD in 2018, 19, 20, and now we have all sorts of it's obviously grown. What's your thinking of what happened here?
I mean, I feel like it's kind of it was like if you were a parent and your kid went to college or something, because back in the early days with Tesla, it was like the company was unprofitable. Every news outlet was publishing negative stories. It was so hard to know what was happening. And when you found the Tesla community online, it was like, wait, somebody else gets it. Somebody else believes in Tesla. And we all kind of banded together with this really strong purpose of like, let's get Tesla to succeed. And I think now Tesla's kind of succeeded in an amazing way, and they're profitable, they're huge, they're growing. I think a lot of there's natural sort of like shout out to Tesla Daily. We just saw Rob and his show. I think there's kind of waves in how people covering and different voices in the community coming up. And I think a lot of the early voices have been shifted away to other stuff. And now everyone has an opinion on Tesla. It's really easy to get everything with Tesla gets a gazillion clicks. So everyone's trying to have a hot take that goes viral. And I think it's just kind of a little bit of a dumpster fire when it comes to Tesla stuff. But also it's a good thing because there's just so many opinions, and it's the Kim Kardashian of business,
The company and the product. Don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
As a trader, I got to take some off the table and wait for a better price.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. We enjoy listening to bears.
Looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
What do you take about this notion that some people are so bullish on Tesla, then they will just change their angle, they'll just switch automatically? Why does that happen, guys?
Well, I'll just say for me, it has changed a little bit. I'm just being honest. I love the community, but the story has changed a little bit. And in 2018, when I got involved, 2019, the stock was a growth machine. And over the last year or two, growth is now slowing. And earnings, for me, that was the big thing. Earnings is starting to slow. And when you're decreasing your earnings year over year, I know long term it doesn't matter. A lot of the bullish community with bots and everything and FSD, but these things are going to be hard to pull off. These are not guaranteed things. And some of the valuation, I think, is in those things. And the longer those things take, and as the car business maybe decelerates and they keep cutting price, the earnings keep going low. So my whole thing with Tesla moving forward is, can the earnings at least hold up to support the valuation from the car business, so that energy and bots can get funded, A, and B, can those things come along quick enough where the valuation stays supported from those earnings? So that's the risk to, I think, right now, the Tesla story. With the earnings coming in and cars just being a little bit, in this macro environment, they're not really growing like they used to, and they're cutting price. Earnings is taking a big hit. Now, you could say, well, I don't matter. But to me, it does matter, because if those earnings go down so low, the valuation of Tesla, the multiple is just expanding. And a lot of investors don't like a growth story that's slowing down their growth. So, just long story short, I just think that the stock's challenged right now. And I'll just say, I love Elon. I think Elon's the greatest entrepreneur ever. Everybody knows that. But, his dealings on X, which I love because I'm a big free speech guy, I think that's amazing. It has hurt a little bit of the sentiment on Tesla stock, and the institutions control the stock. It's not retail. So I think when you put everything together, Tesla's just in a very challenged environment from the earnings story and the CEO. And we saw it again. We should talk about it. The 25%. that came out of nowhere. So I think something like that gives some investors pause because, okay, he kind of intimated that maybe he doesn't go as hard on AI if he doesn't get his holdings up where he feels comfortable that the AI will be safe. So I think, that's an uncertainty, and markets hate uncertainty. So I think that's another thing that gives investors pause. So I'll just leave it at that. But I think those things, cause investors to question the investment.
Gali, what's your response to him about this is an earnings only? He seems to think Tesla is only a auto business. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm reminded of like Amazon stock for a while, which a lot of people it had like, break even earnings for years, but it kept growing its top line. And I always think about it's like intrinsic value. Like, is the intrinsic value growing? Like maybe the financials aren't telling the whole story, but it's been a little bit of a sobering few quarters where we're like price cuts happen. That's really hurting margins, cyclical business. Elon's always said the car business isn't that good of a business. And I think we're seeing that play out. But at the same time, it's like important to remember where Tesla started from. Like $1 billion or $2 billion in earnings a quarter is now like a bad quarter when we used to be losing money. So now we're still profitable. But I think like the earnings power of Tesla on a normalized basis right now is still $10 to $20 billion. And I'd say that justifies with a high PE ratio, the $600 or $700 billion valuation we have now. So I started to think Tesla's like very fairly valued right here when you consider like, okay, a little bit of a premium on the auto business, but it's really growing. Then you got energy, then you got bots. But so that's why I see this fair price. And I'm like, I don't think I personally have been like getting bullish and wanting to add more stock here as it kind of comes down, because I think a lot of the expectations and the decreasing earnings has been priced into the stock. But I do think that is like a great point that you bring up there. It's like, yeah, if the earnings, if you want to be worth $1 trillion, and then you got to really put up earnings or sell a story, because that's a huge valuation and big shoes to fill.
Yeah, let's go to you, Alexandra. Do you want to respond to what he said, or do you want to ask Gali a question?
Well, I would like to keep on the same subject because I think it's really interesting. So what is happening? Why do the investors in Tesla shift, and why is the mood what it is? I mean, first of all, I think we're out of that initial honeymoon phase where, all then Twitter friends were fighting FUD. And I know it was brutal, but it was also very mission driven. It wasn't so much about the stock price. It was about survival. It was about, getting the truth out. And that phase is over just because there are so many more investors. There's so much more attention to Tesla. And so it has become one of the established stocks. While it's an established stock, most people don't want to recognize it is still a huge assembly of different venture capital projects, right? I mean, of course, cars has matured, but even cars, when you see FSD and robotaxi, still has, a huge expansion in front of it, which is risky, which may work or may not work. So you have a big lot of the Gary Blacks of this world that value what they can see and what they can extrapolate, but really based on, current and then projections, but don't take into account any of the fantasy or any of the venture capitalist parts of it. And at the same time, you have an Elon that drives this like in the good old days with the passion for certain things, with a certain poker mentality of what he's putting his attention on and how he's going to do it, while being ultra conservative, not having debt, being very careful that free cash flow covers what he wants to do, sometimes pulling back, sometimes going ahead. So it's just not as stable as an Apple under Tim Cook, or as, what people love in foreseeability. Now, add to that the purchase of X, the politics, the noise that comes because he's attacked from all sides, and it just makes this story stock. And I loved your Kardashian mention, Gali, because the other thing is that there are other Kardashian sisters around, right? So I don't know whether Chloe is Nvidia or whether Kylie is, I don't know, AMD. But the thing is that for investors in this field, in this growth field, there are some other sexy stories around. I mean, they may not be as sexy as the first one, but they have something else. So we are in a competitive field for stock investors, and Tesla is sometimes in a burned out period where people just don't want to get in, even shorten it. I mean, we're only at 3% short, so nothing comparable to 2019, but it's still competing for attention, for positive attention, and there are other sexier girls around at the moment.
Nvidia is very sexy.
There you go. So which sister?
I have one idea to add to that, which I think Tesla's, and I'm really curious what y'all think of this, is we're such an interesting moment that I've never seen for a stock this big, where it still has that venture capital, like you said, businesses. And so you're valuing Tesla. I'd say it's a little overvalued if it's just the car business and energy.
Correct.
But then you're pricing in this optionality of Tesla bot, FSD. And so I think that's a super fascinating game that the markets are playing of trying to price in, just we've never seen in financial markets an opportunity as big as the Tesla bot. And it's like, well, it's a few years out, but they're making crazy progress. I don't want to ignore it, but I don't want to give it all the value. So I think the stock market is in this crazy game right now of trying to figure out how much value to put on FSD and Tesla bot, and that's getting layered onto the core business. So if you look at it with just the core business, it looks super expensive. But if you look at it with those future things in mind, it looks super cheap. And that's
And do you, I mean, I don't know whether you follow that as much as we do, but how Adam Jonas, who is one of the only ones that puts actually price targets on each individual bit of how he comes to his $380 price target, and there is FSD in it, and there is Robotaxi in it, there's Dojo in it, and all that, how he gets attacked by the rest of Wall Street, it is incredible. I mean, if they could just make him shut up, that would be the glory of their day. So there's also this tension within Wall Street among the banks. They hate Morgan Stanley because obviously it has privileged access to Tesla and to Elon. There's so much happening. I mean, every day.
Yeah, that was well put,
All right.
Gali. I like the way you said that. Yeah.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.
I think it comes down to trust of Elon when it comes to this valuation. If as Gali said, with the optionality, you're really investing in what Tesla says that they're going to do. So if they're moving towards bots and FSD, I purchased the cars and buy the FSD because I want to experience it for myself. I don't want to watch videos. I want to know that Tesla is making progress and understand what it means, for V12 with the 300,000 lines of code to 3,000, and how does that work? So if Wall Street and some of the OGs are losing faith here, that the promise is coming, that it's coming. So I think it puts the stock under pressure, especially if you're tweeting or posting about politics, and people get frustrated. It's interesting when the 25% conversation occurred to go into some of the community rooms and hear what people are talking about, and just how pissed off people are saying, Elon can take his shares and go. And I've never heard that from the community before in this regard, like from some of these OGs. So I think it's just a matter of impatience. And from what I see and from the videos that Tesla's putting out, they're continuing to march forward. So I have lost zero faith in Elon and the team. I think if anything, the management has been superb.
I wanted to add here that Jeff and I have been investing in Tesla since 2012. And I have an opinion. The opinion is this. When I invested in 2012, there was massive risk. This company could go down. It was a startup. It barely was selling, hundreds of thousands of cars. But the opportunity was pretty big, right? They're going to revolutionize EV. Today, this is a safe investment. Today, this business has $26 billion. The financials are strong. They're leading in electric vehicles. And yet the opportunity is probably 10, 50, or 100 times bigger than it was in 2012. So for me, the story for Tesla has even gotten better and better and better every year. And yet we have all these stories, people going, oh my God, earnings are down the next year and 2 years. And, it's going to be flat. Sure, maybe the stock will go flat, but this is a safe. Of course, there's always risk. I don't want to say this is risky, but I mean, you're talking about a mega cap company that's fairly strong in terms of their market. And then there's these big, giant option plays that's going to just blow this open. Jeff, what do you think about that concept? Because you also have been pretty long-term investor as well.
Yeah, I remember walking through the factory, probably the end of 2012, and they were, trying to go from 25 cars a week, I think, to 50, on the Model S. And it's just what a different company it is today. But if we kind of go back to this 2018, 2019 time period, the environment financially, the environment in terms of investing, everything has just changed under Tesla's feet. The Tesla community's changed a lot too. But if you think about it, we're in a zero interest rate environment. EVs were the sexiest thing. Everybody was having a PowerPoint show and an unveiling of hundreds of EVs that were going to ship literally by 2020, by 2021, and that was built, and they were getting value. They were getting valued based on that. You had the stock market going crazy, in that time period as well, just growing year on year. Free money out there, tons of CapEx, and there wasn't a sexier game really in town. People weren't talking about AI the way they are today. And then now you see this shift now in over the last year in terms of AI. You see Tesla's change. They're not in this hyper growth mode. You were investing in Tesla and they're still of the mega cap, 5 or 7. They're still, with Nvidia, one of the top growers, but they're not growing at the pace that they were. So that changed. The financials changed, as Christian was talking about. And now all of a sudden, now it's really turning into, you're kind of like on one side of this boat or the other of like, are they going to be able to right the ship and ship hardware and energy very profitably and throw off a bunch of cash and be a good business and have all these option plays? Or is really everything being bet on these option plays? And that's where you've got this, people are like swaying from one side of the boat to the other. I'm not sure. Maybe I should get out. Maybe I want to jump in, on this. So that's why you've got this basically no movement over the last couple of years, no net movement. I think I looked at the last 6 months and we're down 26.5%. And if you look at what the other kind of mega cap 7 are doing, they're in a much better place. So I think it's this case of like the financial environment has changed. There's other opportunities and options out there with AI. Tesla is still not in that AI conversation. And I keep harping back to this, even though that their AI is more real world, more, more, I guess, mission critical, more real than what's actually out there in terms of the kind of the dime a dozen language models. And for whatever reason, Tesla has not crossed that threshold. They haven't had that Chat GPT moment yet. So I think we're in this tweener space, and we've got to get off of that here at some point. We've got to show that the ship has been righted on earnings and gross margins, and we have to show some path. There's got to be one of these things is something going to land in the next 6 months? Is it going to be a breakthrough in FSD licensing? Is it going to be a breakthrough with V12 and capability? FSD expansion? Is it going to be something, big, as a partnership, something happening? We've already had also the competition capitulation over the last year, both in their hardware effort and their autonomy efforts. And you would think Tesla would be getting a lot more credit for that than they are. And I think Christian really summed up, there's an incredible amount of noise that you layer that on top of all the execution, the market dynamics changing. EVs aren't as sexy anymore as they once were. And somehow that was allowed to happen, even though the data doesn't say that. So complex time, but it's still recoverable. But Tesla's got to light that path forward. It can't be another gloom and doom story. If it is, I mean, that's going to be a problem near term.
Yeah, and if I may add something to what you said, Herbert, you're right. I don't think Tesla is in any position to go bust anymore. But I want to point this out, and I know that actually Gali doesn't agree with me. 26 billion is not huge as a cash reserve for the type of business Tesla is doing and for the type of investment that is necessary for AI in the coming months. I'm not even saying coming years. There have been thin on free cash flow the last 12 months. We all know why. Margins going down because of the price cuts of the cars. And it's been a difficult environment. Elon was right to be so prudent on not going into debt, not he cleared the balance sheet as much as he could. You know my quarterly tables. Tesla is, with Google, the strongest financial company out there in the top 30, 35. Let's not even talk about the car sector. But what it also is it's 26 billion in an environment where, other than Nvidia, who is not cash rich either, the other players that are in the AI field, and I agree with you, Jeff, in the less complex AI field, have 4, 5, 6 times the cash reserves. And so while 26 billion is obviously a very good cushion for Tesla investors because it's better than ever, it's not a comfort level yet. That's why I'm trying to say it's not a comfort level that allows us to go to buybacks and whatever. I know we're going to have that discussion. Just want to make my position clear now.
Okay. So I want to get back to Gali and tell your story, Gali, because I do believe that you made a difference to Tesla. Tesla was about to go bankrupt in 2018. The height of the attacks, people knew that they might go bankrupt and they attacked, and you and a few handful of others in the Tesla retail community, you stood up, you fought those FUD, and your voice was heard. And I tell you, you changed the tide a little bit. It was a little funny because before we actually started this recording, everybody here was treating you like a celebrity and they all like gushing how much they love you. So thank you though for doing that. I want to ask you more questions, but Xander, did you want to share your story?
Yeah, I do. So Gali, you are the direct reason I joined the community. I'm a numbers guy. I'm classically educated on the financial world. So S&P 500 index funds, 40% total stock, 40% total international, and maybe 20% bonds. And then I learned bonds are just so you don't panic when the stock market poops the bed. So I discovered your videos, I want to say in 2018, and I had Tesla on the map, but it was your videos that explain the finances. So I'm a business owner. I own some froyo shops, and when you presented the P&L documents and went through the numbers, and I saw that the balance sheet was going to become de-risked, and they were going to become profitable with the Model 3 ramp, I started doing my research. So I imagine there are many like me in the community that greatly appreciate all that you've done for the retail shareholders, and obviously that famous Elon, let's go to retail is epic, and really appreciate you. I own a HyperChange hat, one of the 420s, I think, right? Or yeah, you did 420 hats. So I have it. I didn't bring it on the trip here. I'm back in California. I moved to Texas. So, but yeah, much respect, and thank you so much for everything you've done for the community.
Well said.
Shout out, respect, love that.
Okay, let's ask you some more questions, Gali. So we've got this agenda here. I want to hear more about the G2 Milli and 2 VC Bros. You're in charge of HyperChange, and HyperChange is that, it's kind of the podcast, the channel, your media empire that you've built that's speaking the truth about not only Tesla but other things. And then you are a venture capitalist and you're running HyperGuap. So we're going to get to HyperGuap later, but let's start with the other things you're working on. So G2 Milli and 2 VC Bros, you have just completely just blown up in terms of what you're doing. You have this idea of 2 VC Bros. So that's like a sitcom. It's a sitcom you're creating, very highly produced, very, very funny. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so appreciate all the love, first of all. And I feel like we have so many I was just gonna plug in so my computer doesn't die here. But so many ideas with Tesla that Tesla boomer mama got me scheming over there. The 26 billion, I agree, is not that much cash. And my buyback talk may have been a little premature. So I just want to throw that out there. But no, I mean, I've started my HyperChange was just kind of like I got tired of watching CNBC and loved the idea of like a show of just me documenting my investments and being like, I like Tesla stock. This is what I think of Tesla stock, and building a community around it. And I feel like a kid in a candy store of like, how amazing is it to watch Tesla be a public company and go through all of their growth curves and get to watch it, get to invest in it, get to be a part of it. Like that was, I feel like, just a huge blessing. And I love the community and all that stuff. And now I took a little bit of a break from YouTube, but now I'm trying to come back with like this G to a Milli series where I basically open source me building a portfolio of stocks and just kind of, people can call in and I talk about Tesla a lot, Coinbase. Tesla's my biggest position in that, obviously. But yeah, so just trying to have fun with it and kind of document the stuff that interests me through my YouTube channel. And then I, through that, started investing in startups, started a venture capital firm called HyperGuap. We have a tiny $8 million fund that invests in startups. And then I was like trying to think about how do we market my fund? I love making videos. I've always wanted to make a sitcom and kind of came up with this idea of making a sitcom that kind of like the show Silicon Valley, but about a YouTuber teaming up with his friend to launch a VC fund, which is kind of the true story of HyperGuap. So I don't know if you know the show Dave by the rapper Lil Dicky. That is like, I love that show. And so that was kind of like the genesis of like, it's kind of real, but it's not real. And so just been having a ton of fun, like making videos, investing, making content. Like I love it. Yeah.
This is what I love about you, man. You're willing to take the hits, and it's brilliant. So G2 Milli, right? You're actually creating a fund just for fun, right? It's like a paper trade, and you've got
no, it's real.
Oh, it's real.
It's not, no, it's I'm trying to make $1 million quick. So I'm just doing
from $1,000, and you chose Coinbase and Tesla. What do you think about that, Christian? Would you have chosen this?
Yeah, he's got to throw lemonade in there. The lemonade community's all over him. He's supposed to show up for a space of mine. Lemonade, research it, Gali. Go to invest.
I tell you, Kardashian voters are back.
It's the stock. It's the stock. No, but no. Anyway, no. I love the G to a Milli concept. I want to say real quick, like again, in 2018, 2019, I was watching Gali's videos. Big inspiration. Again, I came from the ETF world, mutual funds, saving, dollar cost averaging, and now 5-6 years later, I love stocks. I love markets. I've dedicated my life to it pretty much. Every day, I'm looking at opportunities in companies, public companies, and macro, everything. I just love everything about markets, and I just become a student. Listen to all the great investors, and Gali was a big inspiration in getting me into individual stocks like Tesla. So again, much respect to that, and I love the 2VC Bros. It's my kind of humor, so I appreciate that from Gali, because when I watch it, I don't think it's for everyone, but I love it. I totally get it. I don't think I don't know how mainstream it is, but for me and people like me, I love it. I think it's well done, very hilarious, Gali, and keep doing it. I love that about you. You're willing to take risks. That's what I love about Gali. Gali is willing to put himself out there, and if he goes flat, so be it. But he'll put himself out there, and I respect that, man. I love it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, I'm just having fun with it. And I feel like that's my North Star. And the whole G to a Milli concept, like I'm trying to make it fun. Like this whole and like inspire people of like put a little money away. Cause that's what I did with Tesla with my YouTube channel was like every dollar I had in extra from making YouTube videos about Tesla, I just bought Tesla stock. And just this idea of like, I wasn't saving for retirement now. I feel like I was being lazy about my finances. And I was like, okay, what if I want to start a portfolio, put $1,000 in, put $250 in every 2 weeks, force myself to save, invest it into different companies. And I was like, wait, this is a great concept for a show. And then I'm using the ad money from the show to add to the account. I'm doing all these random side hustles to try and make extra money to put it in my account and kind of just show people like, this is what it takes to build wealth. This is how I would do it. And just kind of like have fun with it. Like that's my goal for all of content. And I feel like that's what I'm getting from this show too, is like having fun. Yeah. I feel like that's like the North Star of like everything flows once you're doing that.
Last week, we were talking about this idea of a CyberBulls ETF. You know what, guys? Let's do what he's doing. Let's make it real. Let's put real dollars here. Let's make money.
I got my free stock.
Okay. What's your three? What's your three?
We want to do it now? Well, I mean, so
wait for the show.
Well, do it now or not yet?
I'd wait for the
Okay.
show. Could get
All right, so
stolen.
let's
For the-
okay. Anyways, this is gonna be fun. Thank you so much, Gali. That'll be fun to watch you. Where are you now? Is it $1,000? Is it lost, buddy?
2,700.
Whoa!
So but I put in 2810.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
I'm down.
that is fun.
And you would be up if you just invested in the S&P 500. So I'm tracking it. So half the point of the experiment is to be like, I'm an idiot. Everyone's an idiot. Why are you even watching this? Just put it in the S&P 500. That's like my benchmark. So I kind of love that like joke of the show, but it's early. Secretly, I'm hoping that I keep failing and losing and Tesla stock keeps going down. And then I'm going to buy a bunch when it's super low. And then, yeah.
But you're in good company. I'm tracking every day all these ETFs that have Tesla in it. I mean, nobody beat the S&P. Nobody was beating the Tesla stock performance either. I put in my first column what the Tesla stock did over I mean, you do, of course, Christian. Excuse me.
I did.
How could I forget?
Okay, let's talk about this big news, of course, that Elon talked about, and everybody's been discussing the 25% that he wants for voting control. Gali, and I think a few others, you didn't come up with this idea, but you really like this concept of the buyback, which is, again, out of the box thinking. But what did you guys think? I mean, let's go down the panel here. What were your thoughts? Is this a bad thing for Tesla? That Elon, is he fighting the board? Is this a good thing? I know this is going to be a long conversation, so maybe we can keep it short. Why don't we start with you, Alexandra? We'll go down and end with Gali.
Okay, sure. So first of all, I think it's absolutely necessary that Elon gets compensated. I am not at all in the camp of those that said, oh, he still has 5 years of options where he has to actually dedicate his time to Tesla to exercise the ones in March 2028, which is actually only 4 years. But that has been accomplished. That was the compensation plan of 2018. He made it happen. We all voted for those. I mean, I wasn't there yet, but it was voted by the shareholders. So that's an old story. You can't say to somebody, look, you got paid in 2020. Now sit it out until the last options expire in 2028. That just doesn't work. So I want a new compensation plan. And I think there should be a compensation plan with very ambitious goals. And I actually am convinced that they have worked on that for months and months, because if you listen, I did that exercise yesterday. If you go through the old earnings calls, when he made the allusion of, I'm actually sure we're going to be bigger than Apple, or we're going to be bigger than Apple and Saudi Aramco together. That's typically the fruit of these discussions. What do you want to put as a benchmark? And so I don't think these things just happened in nowhere. I think they were part of that discussion. So just to recall a little bit how this works, the Tesla board of directors, 8 members, including Kimball and Elon, but they don't have any voting say in any of the committees. GB Straubel is too new to be in a committee, so the other 5 have different functions, and there are 3 of them in the compensation committee, which has as its chair Ira Ehrenpreis, who is one of the oldest, I mean, not oldest in age, but longest members of the Tesla board of directors. He's been there since 2007, is a venture capitalist in Tesla and in a lot of other things as well. So he's the chair of those of these 3. So it's Ira, and it is Robin Denholm, who herself is the chair of the board, and Kathleen Wilson-Thompson, who is the lady who came from Walgreens and who is very versed in personnel matters. And so I'm sure they've been working on this for a long time, but there is that Delaware court case still pending, that short seller with 9 Tesla shares that put in question the old compensation plan. So we're still waiting for that judgment from that appeal case, and we'll see whether Elon has, just gets cleared there or has anything to reimburse. Who knows? So, and I think they're waiting for that. So that there should be a compensation plan seems normal to me. Now, there is this topic, he shouldn't have sold Tesla to buy X. I mean, excuse me, who are we to judge what he does with his money? And thinking that he now wants an increase of voting rights so that he can compensate for his sale of Tesla shares, it's ludicrous. I mean, I don't even want to go into this situation and discuss it, because it gives it even further steam. This story just shouldn't exist. What he does with his money is his thing. That he now deserves a compensation plan, for me, is evident. Why this 25% limit? Well, at the moment, Tesla is one of those privileged stocks. I'm sure the institutionals wouldn't consider it like that, but we are, where retail investors are about the same size than institutional investors. And I think, especially given the passion of Tesla retail investors, it is really important that that is maintained as much as possible. Now, with any new stock issuance, except if there's a buyback, we'll get there, Gali. Everybody's diluted. The institutionals are diluted. The retail investors are diluted just because there's going to be more stock around, right, to give to Elon. So by getting to 25% him after dilution, he can make sure that the retail investors and his part have the supermajority, which is 66.6%. I think that is the goal and why 25% is so important. Because there are a couple of topics. I went yesterday through the bylaws that have to have the supermajority. And I just think he is convinced he doesn't want to have the Vanguards and the BlackRocks decide, especially if AI becomes the main topic of Tesla products and expansion and profits, because you just don't want to have institutional investors that have index funds, which are set up to have the lowest fees, yet give them the highest voting power. I mean, I've been cursing against index funds for years. We can go in detail into all that, but I think it just comes up here again with the whole ESG crap, with the whole DEI crap, with all these other subjects that should never have been in this whole financial field, and where Elon is the poster child of their hate, especially now that he has X. So let me make very clear where I am. I want him to get to 25%. I want him to get there through milestones that are very ambitious. I know they have to wait for that Delaware case. Now, there have been a couple of new ideas out there that rather than just giving it to him, he should give Starlink or parts of Starlink to Tesla, or he should give parts of XAI to Tesla. Yeah. I think, if he wants to get those 25% quicker than over a 4 or 5 year plan, that could be an option if he feels like he wants to monetize something. But I don't think Elon has set this up to monetize Starlink or XAI by giving parts of it to Tesla and him increasing the shares. Who knows what they'll come up with? I'm not sure we're competent enough to discuss these, but there seems to be lots of options. But the one thing we have to wait for is that law case.
What do you think, Gali? Oh, sorry, Alexandra. Xander, were you going to say something?
Yeah, let me just ask a follow-up to what you said. I think that 66% supermajority just educated me on something. Can you paint just a quick doomsday scenario where not having that 66% can spell disaster for the retail shareholders?
Yeah, they have been very clever. For the last 2 years, shareholders have tried to put a phrase into the bylaws. I'm sure you remember when we discussed these stupid votes every year. So that for 2 years now, there was a vote there that if you had 20 shareholders and if they could prove they had for 3 years shares and blah, 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 and blah, 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 they could nominate directors and put them up for vote, right? And Tesla was always recommending to vote against this proposal and lost it. That's one of the few proposals they lost where the vote was there. And so, and yesterday, and I want the lawyer, I actually called out, I want a security law lawyer going through this with me again, because what they did is they added a couple of conditions now to it, because they seem to be really focused of pulling the teeth as much as possible of that amendment they had to insert. So what it comes down to is they don't want directors on the board nor executives that are proposed and need to be voted with less shares than 66.6%. So already a nomination, they're making it as difficult as possible, but then they also want to make sure that whoever gets, up to vote, it really needs 66.6%. I think that's where the needle is, where they want to make sure that Elon plus retail remains at 66.6.
Yeah. Gali, what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, I like echoing the idea that we got to do whatever it takes to get Elon paid. And I think his value that he contributes versus what he's gotten for his 2018 package, like, speaks for itself. Like, it was a $59 billion company. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, it's like $1 trillion company, and he crushes all his milestones everyone thought was ridiculous at the time. So I always say, like, I'm betting on this company because of Elon. I want to give him as much power as possible. I feel like he's at maybe you can correct me on this, but he owns like 13% plus up to 22% if he exercises options. And so I'm thinking
it's a bit less. It's a bit less, Gali, because people always add these 10%, but the 10% already would bring more shares to it. We would move from 3.1 to 3.5 million shares then. So those 300,000 are not 10%, they're rather 7 point something. So it would be a little 20%.
More like 20.
And then he has to sell and he has to sell some of those shares to pay the taxes on that option exercise. So after taxes, I think he'll be about 18. I mean, it's very difficult to really, it depends on what stock price we then are and whatever. But I think 18, including those option, is probably the fairest approach to it.
Okay, that's really helpful. So my take is, like, why not just give him a similar compensation package to what we already gave him to bump him from 18 to, let's say, like 30 something, and then you account for the dilution and then the taxes and all that stuff. That seems to me like an easy fix. Or I don't know, but I just personally get worried of anyone, like you said, DEI, ESG, just anything getting in the way of Elon working on his vision. And I think it's actually really smart for him to negotiate in public. I feel like it's kind of a strategy. And also what you were saying about this, him thinking about this, okay, Saudi Aramco plus Apple, can I get to 5 trillion? He's been planting the seeds to this. And I personally am like, I want to get this resolved ASAP. I want to make sure Elon's motivated. I think his price as an executive to get him to work for you is only going up. And it means a lot to me as a Tesla investor to have Elon Musk, because that's, like, frankly who I'm investing in. And so I just hope they get it fixed. That's kind of, I'm curious to hear what else y'all think. Like, why isn't this an easy fix with another stock comp package? Yeah.
Okay. Jeff?
I have something to say on that. I think the reason is, you saw it with that poll with Elizabeth Warren, with him selling stock and to pay that tax bill. There seems to be a lot of investors that think that, which is strange, because you think that it's all, you're investing in a company for the company to make money. Yet here, oh, he's the richest man in the world. It's very bizarre to me that we continue to hear that, oh, he already has stock. Would you work for free? I'm a shareholder. Am I supposed to go to the factory and work? Right? He has shares, but he's the CEO. That's getting paid what, $1? So I think that has a lot to do with the optics of this, and I completely agree that he should be paid. And if anything, it's going to benefit the shareholders.
Yeah, I have a mixed take on this. Getting the not so fun stuff out of the way. I don't think this should be played out in the media. Number one, you're in a quiet period. Number two, you have an active legal case. There's no formal movement. And third, you don't have the shareholders meeting scheduled. So there's no formal movement that could occur. Everybody knows the retail, shareholders are behind Elon. I don't buy into this. He's answering a question from Twitter, and that's why he responded in a quiet period with an active court case. I don't buy it. I don't understand what's going on. I don't like it. I don't think it's good. I think Christian said it well. It presents near-term uncertainty, maybe long-term uncertainty. Are there moves made? Why is XAI outside of Tesla? And how do we get all of this stuff? What assets is XAI using? Where's the data going? And what servers are those sitting on? Who funded that? I think there's a lot of questions out there that just don't have answers, and I don't think this actually helps in terms of doing it in the media. Welcome to a debate. Now, the good stuff. Elon is he is a performer. He is a candidate. He is an engineer. He is a leader. You go out and recruit CFOs. You go out and recruit CEOs. Those people have a price in the marketplace. He has a price in the marketplace. of course he should be taken off the market and have an active compensation plan as a matter of board process, as a matter of corporate governance, and as a matter of he is in the marketplace and he should be taken off the marketplace by Tesla and by nobody else. So should he have a plan? I'm not, sure it's like, should it be 25% or whatever? I think there's a conversation to be had there, but he should have a plan tied to milestones that obviously enrich shareholders and get, kind of everything kind of going on the right path. But I think playing this out in public and just be, to say he had to respond to one thing, he did not. But I think this should be set on there should be a plan of action, like pending your court case, pending this is what we're going to do. This is what we agreed to. The board and I have agreed to terms. Everybody's happy. Of course, this needs to be voted on. Let's move on and let's create a great future together. That's what I would love to see.
Well put, Jeff.
You are right. You're right on 2 points. The one is we need to understand the relationship between XAI and Tesla. There is sharing of employees, of utility. There is so much, and I don't think it should become, if I don't work enough for Tesla, I'm going to work more for XAI or whatever. I don't think XAI should be a tool to play with. It should be very clear, why they're separated, what belongs to Tesla. Maybe Tesla wants to invest in it. That will give Elon more money that he can invest in Tesla, and he has more shares. What do I know? I have no idea how they want to do it, and how quickly they want to do it, and how quickly he wants to get to the 25%, because maybe it's just too late to do it over a 4 or 5 year compensation plan, which probably is what they are having in. But he says, well, I want to get to 25% quicker. Well, that could be one way of doing it. But I agree with you. This whole relationship between XAI and Tesla needs clarification. We've said that 3 months ago, and I hope by the end of the month when he does his speech with what's going to come in the next 12 months for Tesla, it's going to be clarified. You're also right. It's not the place to do that on X by responding to Omar or Amy or me or whoever else. I mean, we're all pushing him because we want him to be compensated. We want him to be focused on Tesla. We want to hear these goals. And actually, we will hear them if they get there, we'll hear them in the proxy that is then for the probably May shareholder meeting. So we'll have lots of time to go through it and vote for it. Yeah. But that's the way it should have been done. But that's Elon. I mean, that's why we love him, and that's why it's fun and a ride every day, right?
Yeah, I agree with all your points. I agree with Jeff, Gal. I agree with Alexandra. I agree with everyone. But I'll just say this real quick. Again, perception becomes reality. So when Elon puts that out there and he says that tweet, again, Elon's Elon, but I'm just saying there's consequences to it, like there is with everything. The perception is, I need more stake in Tesla to pursue Tesla AI. So as an investor, I'm thinking, okay, well, what if you don't get your stake to 25%? You're not going to pursue Tesla AI as hard as you're worried about these negative effects from others coming in. So to me, I have a brain, I got to question that. Okay, well, is that going to get resolved? I don't know. Maybe sell now, ask questions later. So, I mean, these are things that going through retail investors, institutions, and everything. So I think that's something to consider as a risk. Yeah, but well said by everyone.
Gali, you know Elon a little bit more. I mean, you've had that interview with him. You've been following him much longer than many of us. So do you think that he's fighting with the board? Is he using this as the negotiation way to communicate something to the board, or go ahead. I'll tell you my thinking after you share yours.
Yeah, my theory on this is that Elon basically had a pause moment of wait, companies are getting so powerful. The technology they're developing with the Tesla bot is so profound. Who controls that is extremely important. We saw Sam Altman get kicked out of OpenAI. I mean, I have this theory that companies and technologies are getting way more powerful than governments, at an insanely quick pace. This is HyperChange. And so I think Elon Musk had a moment of holy shit, I'm going all in on the Tesla bot. This is going to be a home run product that's going to change humanity forever. But wait, I only own 13% of Tesla. I'm not even, and what he said, I don't even think it's a money thing. I think it's a control thing. And he kind of alluded to that. And so I think it's a lot of just it's, Elon's a genius and he thinks everything through, but he also is like a human and just reacts and is very like off the cuff and in the moment and kind of like goes with his intuition. And I think he just had an aha moment of my intuition is like, look, like I'm working my ass off for this. I think there's a huge potential with the Tesla bot, but I don't feel like I'm in control of the ship. And I'm worried that at a moment's notice, somebody else, some DEI, some investment fund could take control of Tesla with the robot, which becomes one of the world's most powerful technologies. And that's not good. And I want to have a bigger say. And he just had that realization. And now it's kind of trickling out and playing out. But that's kind of my take on this. And I see where he's coming from of like, who controls the robots is going to be one of the most powerful people in the world. And it looks like that's going to be Tesla. And so whoever controls Tesla is like, there's a lot riding on this. And now is the time to take a pause and negotiate it before things get even crazier and more out of control. So I just think that's kind of my read on how it's all playing out and where he's
Bullseye.
You said exactly what I was about to say. So you articulated better. Thank you, Gali. That's exactly what I interpret it to be as well.
And may I add, I think this unfortunate episode with Ross last year when he tried to go on the board, which was obviously completely ridiculous and everything, but I think it actually illustrated that you can have activist board members. So, I mean, I don't even want to glorify him in anything because that's giving him a title that he doesn't deserve. But what he did, and when I really turned on him, remember that was in February or January last year when he suddenly declared that he's now contacting the Vanguards and the BlackRocks of this world to get their votes for his candidature. This was big panic because, the problem is they have 7% each. And with two people deciding, you suddenly have 14%, right? And on the other side, you have Elon with 13%. And that becomes the war of the titans. And I mean, it's all good to have motivated retail investors, but if you don't have enough votes, you don't have enough votes. So that's why one of my thinkings is compensation plan, of course, but he wants to get to 25% quicker. So there may have to be another solution. And then I just want to add one last thing. I don't remember, Gali, whether you were at the Cybertruck event, but Jeff and me were there, and we were very well placed just behind the board members and the people, and around Elon taking deliveries. And one of the people taking deliveries was Ira Ehrenpreis, the chair of the compensation committee and obviously member of the board. And Jeff can attest to that. I mean, there is such a mutual friendship between Kimball, Elon, and him. His wife was there. He was taking possession of, I think, the 10th or 8th, the last one of the Cybertrucks that was delivered that day. There is no way that the board would ignore or really, counter Elon's desire if that's what he wants. They will work with him. That doesn't mean they're going to take every word he wants without questioning it, but they will do everything to keep him motivated and keep him within Tesla. So I really don't think the issue is at the board. They have gone through tough times. Remember, they had to give back millions of options themselves a couple of months ago. They have been through 3 law cases since that 2018 compensation package. Never fun for them. They had to attest, they had to have the lawyers, whatever. It's, burden, time, effort, nerves. So they're certainly prudent about it and are taking a lot of advice from lawyers about it, but they will do everything to make this as pleasant as possible to Elon.
I want to highlight something that Wall Street is interested in earnings, and Tesla and Elon and retail is more interested in the mission and the long-term vision. So when Gali was describing the kind of the doomsday scenario, and that's what I was asking about. So it ultimately, if someone nefarious can come in, outvote and choose something for the bot or a path like either military or something like that, is that kind of the worst case scenario that we're trying to avoid by making sure that Elon has enough votes to to make the right decision? Is that accurate?
I mean, I know, Xander, where you're coming from. You're very concerned, and I think we should be. But I think the problem is when you're a public equity, you have lots of stakeholders. And, you know, the rabbit's out of the hat. Elon's talked about this. He talked about the dual classes. Some stocks have that. I think Zuckerberg has that. He has the voting. But when Tesla was set up, it wasn't set up like that. And Elon actually talked about that as being proud about that. Like, my 20th generation isn't going to own Tesla, right? That, like, essentially his kids aren't going to be able to run it and do whatever they want. And so, you know, I respect Elon for that. But I mean, when you're a public company, you have public shareholders. So there is a responsibility to the shareholder. And once you're a public company, you can do what you can to try to mitigate certain things that you don't want to happen, but you can't micromanage it, because everyone wants to be a part of the company. And if they own shares, they own shares. So, I mean, trying to structure it and say, you know, let's do this and do, I mean, I understand it. I understand we want to give Elon control, but there's limits to what you can do when it's a public free floating company. So maybe I'm in the minority in that, but I think we have to be practical about it. And you just can't wave a magic wand. And, you know, Elon did sell a whole bunch of shares for X, which I love, because I think that X is a great platform and the free speech is what we needed in this country. I'll never forget that. And I think that will go down as one of the greatest things ever. But we have to understand he did sell a lot of his stake, and, you know, that he had, and now he just kind of wants it back because he's worried, and I get it. But we got to be practical about it, and we have to think of a solution that doesn't hurt the regular shareholder while this process goes on. That Elon is focused and he's doing the right thing, which I know he is. But again, perception becomes reality. And if the perception is that Elon's holding back something because he's worried until he gets a certain thing, I think that's an issue.
Okay. Let's wow, that was good. Full of information, great perspectives. Just love this conversation. Before we leave, though, I want to ask Gali a question. So a lot of people were saying that, okay, 2018, there was a lot of shorts and there was a lot of FUD, disinformation. And now that the shorts are gone because the stock rose quickly, that's gone. But I would say that's completely the opposite. In fact, today, there's more attacks. You've got big oil, you got big auto, who's now, because they're delaying their goals, they're going to be attacking hybrid, they're saying hybrids is the way instead of electric vehicles. You've got big MSM, you got all the enemies of Elon, enemies of Tesla. And so more and more FUD is coming out. An example of one is a Chicago freeze. And so, Jeff actually drove to that location. We'll ask him this question about what happened there. But what do you think about that? I mean, some people are saying, oh, Tesla's already a successful company. There's no need to fight the FUD anymore. When in fact, the FUD is actually just not only, it's like 10 times more than it was 2018. I mean, I don't know what your perspective is.
I think it's like the greatest mental heist that we've seen in the country or in the world ever, is that the convincing of the American people that Elon Musk is bad at business and bad for America and not doing the right thing. Like, that is, to me, I cannot believe that, like, Tesla succeeded. We're solving climate change. Electric vehicles are manifesting. This whole vision that he painted that everyone said was not going to work is working. And now this narrative changes. He's crazy. I think part of it is, like, you get a lot of clicks when you hate on Elon. But I'd be curious what you think, Herbert, because, like, Seattle, everyone hates Elon Musk. Like, if I went on the street, it'd be like 10 out of 10 people. Like, what do you think of Elon Musk? Like, he sucks. And it's like, well, that's interesting, because I grew up in Seattle and our whole thing was like electric vehicles, sustainability, like, and I just feel like people have totally lost sight of that. I think there's a big part of something that gives me faith is I think there's a loud, like, mainstream media, like, kind of like division of people who hate on Elon, and they're a lot louder than they really are. Like, it's not that many people, it's just a loud amount of people. But I don't know. I think the attacks have gotten worse than ever. And I think everyone's like, AI, like, misinformation, like, when's AI gonna, like, ruin the election or whatever? And to me, we've already seen the start of the narrative in the digital era lose reality. And that starts with us not appreciating Elon Musk. Like, if you look back at the history books, it's like we have the most amazing engineer and entrepreneur creating all these jobs, all this value, all this technology, and yet he's the most hated person. It's the most irrational thing. And so I think this is the first part of, like, this disillusion where humans think something is bad for them when really it's good for them. And I don't know, it makes me really sad, and it's hard to deal with. I think personally, Elon does, like, lean into it a little with kind of like a divisive personality and comments. And that's not helping, but it blows my mind the hate in Seattle that there is for Elon Musk and Tesla, and just how many people believe bullshit about it that's not true. And it kind of breaks my heart. But yeah.
But don't you think that that happened when he became politically more to the right leaning and more vocal? Because I think that's when we also lost some of the Rosses of this world, just because it didn't correspond to what they had hoped for the last 5 or 10 years of Elon being an outspoken Democrat and obviously sustainable and green energy and whatever. And then this, I wouldn't say sudden, but this moment where he, by purchasing X, but even a little bit before that, just became much more outspoken and right wing, or I mean, I don't even consider it right wing, but at least less left wing and less supportive of what these people usually have, the typical mainstream media narrative. Put that into question, published the Twitter files when he purchased X, putting obviously the current administration in question. So he did shoot himself in the foot like he's good at doing. And that's where we lost some of the former key figures of the Tesla world. I think Ross is the best example, but also where we're giving food to mainstream media, because I mean they're running with it now. They hate him for the political side. They hate him because he has X, because that's actually existential for them, that fact that he has X. And they just turn any story to be negative without Tesla ever responding. I know I don't want any PR department or whatever, but they have an open field.
And yeah, I mean, I have so many ideas on that. I think it's like when Biden didn't invite Tesla and Elon to the EV summit, that was a moment for me of a lifelong Democrat and someone who voted for Biden with the #1 agenda being green energy and sustainability, to be like, we're going to have the most world's gem of sustainability, and just like, oh, they're not lobbying, so we take them out because they're not paying us. It's like, oh, you don't give a shit for your values. You have nothing to stand on. You're just all about lobbying, and it's a total sham. So is it like, did Elon look bad, or did they look bad? Like, it's a little bit of both. And I think the amount of like people like me who used to be Democrats, or I don't even want to say used to be, or like I'm not affiliating with either party, but just like who are like rethinking their whole political position of just like, wait, like that was a total scam by Biden and AOC saying they cared about the green stuff, but they're just actually politicians playing the lobbying game. So I think that was a wake up moment for America. And there's a lot of like backlash that's happening to that. But I don't know. It's Elon has gone. I think if I was Elon, I would be pissed at the Democrats too. Of like, I really voted for you and supported you and built the technology you've been asking for decades, and then you slap me in the face and like are super rude to me and like hype up GM as leading the revolution. Like, I'd be like, screw you. So it's a crazy moment, and I feel like it's tapping into something much bigger, which is like the current government and mainstream media has lost a lot of trust and faith from the people, and Elon's just the scapegoat of that for now. But really, it's like not Elon messing up, it's them messing up and kind of getting desperate.
Jeff, do you want to share your story of the current FUD that's still happening today?
Yeah, I'll try. I know we're pressed on time. I'll try to be brief. Yeah, it's some of the stuff that's just mind bending. Like, it doesn't even pass the common sense test or a filter, but they kind of lead with the FUD, and then there's some kernel of truth at the bottom that you've got to go dig for and find. So in the case of, this isn't the first winter that EVs are driving around in cold weather climate. This isn't the first winter that, there was cold temperatures in the Chicago area, but there were a couple of stalls and a couple of motorists that, there's over 80,000 vehicles in the EVs in the Chicago area. And there were a couple of motorists and a couple of charging stalls that had a problem. And it literally turned into Chicago is a big market. It turned into a, local news story that was picked up by multiple national syndicates of like, Teslas and EVs don't work in the winter. You can't rely on them. You can't charge them, even though there are millions of them literally in the US and there's other cold cities in the United States, by the way. There's Minneapolis, there's Detroit, there's go up into Canada, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, you go to Norway, and Teslas operate wonderfully. They're great on snow, they're great in cold weather, they charge, they're great. There are different things you have to do in the cold weather. So I think we had a little bit of a perfect storm here of like, We had a supercharger that's starting to get in the Chicago area. There's not a high utilization of superchargers. It is starting to ramp up as sales have ramped up, as Uber usage has started to ramp up. So now you've got a bunch of new people using Teslas. Nobody's reading manuals. Nobody knows that you've got to navigate to the supercharger, precondition your battery, make sure you leave enough or more charge in your battery to deal with colder environments. Nobody's being told. It's just saying, here, you're an Uber driver, rent a Tesla from Hertz, you'll make more money, there's less maintenance, go. And now you're going to have this distribution of people that, are rolling into a supercharger with 4 miles on their car. They haven't preconditioned the battery, and then the battery's not at a minimum threshold. It's been negative temperatures for multiple days in a row here. And just long story short, I just went and I pulled the data for the last day and a half real time, going into my car and both looking on the Tesla app itself and looking at charger uptime, which chargers, how many chargers are out of order, and do we have a systemic issue? The news reported that Teslas are piling up everywhere and people can't charge their cars. And the reality of it is people that, we don't have full root cause, by the way, but we know that there were some stalls down. But when I look at the numbers, there's 92% of the stalls were up this morning. 92. I looked at 132 stalls and 121 of them were showing operational. Then I went and I drove to this famous, charger, this Oakport charger. I know I'm more than a day out from the actual reporting, but I mean, all 8 stalls were up and running. I charged myself on 3 without issue. My car, by the way, was sitting out for a couple of hours. So I just hit the thing, navigated to it. My car told me it's preconditioning, and my car said, by the way, this is a busy charger, so you may, run into some traffic. So you get all these notifications if you use kind of the right process. So anyway, I want to focus more on, so anyway, I tweeted about it. I said, look, there's a lot of FUD happening here. There's a real issue, like real motors were impacted, but there's the news led with FUD, and then there's a kernel of truth buried. And they use the specter of video and audio and interviewing people and said, wow, this is a catastrophe. It's not a catastrophe when you look at the numbers. There should be a focus on prevention, not paranoia. And there should be a focus on, I'm in conversation right now with one of the lead news channels in the area. And this person, by the way, is a Tesla owner, investor. And I don't want to out people on this in this conversation. The only thing I'll say is that there's an acknowledgement that there may be a different way to cover these things and not just bash EVs, bash anything Elon, bash anything Tesla. And anyway, focus on prevention, focus on really actually applying context to the issue. Like, how many stalls are there in the area? How many are really down? How many Teslas are in the area? EVs, 80,000+. How many are actually having this problem? And then have the conversation of, okay, based on that context, where do we go from here? But that's not how the reporting goes. And it just kind of tails into this whole conversation around what's happening and how you kind of lose faith in media, politics, and you lose, what are you actually being told on TV if everything is just distorted one way or another and it's driven by ad dollars?
It is, and thank you for doing that, Jeff, because I mean, I'm sure it wasn't fun getting out in the cold and testing this all, but very grateful that you did it. And 92%, that's all you need to know.
And just in 10 seconds, I'm not just saying that there's people in the Tesla community that are confused of like, you're saying there's not a problem. Yeah, some motors, some small percentage experienced a problem. There's no question about it. You have to put things in context. You have to understand that you were being fudded, and you have to understand and acknowledge that you were being fudded. And now what do we do as Tesla community members? How do we deal with that? I would say focus on prevention and education of other users, but also focus on that you were being fudded. And I don't want to be fudded. I don't want to stand up for that. I want to stand up for that. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen is what I meant.
Well, this is a great example of what I was saying earlier, right? So there's a tremendous amount of FUD still happening today. The good news is people like you, Gali, you actually drove to the supercharger. You actually reported on it and so forth, but we need to get your word out. Great. I mean, this is fantastic. That's why it's important. But Gali, I got to go back to your two, was it G to milli? So you're trying to take $1,000, make it $1 million. It's real dollars. It's really yours. I'm a little shocked that you chose Tesla because people are, don't expect Tesla to rise anytime soon, but you still think it's something that you would put your money today. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I'm super old school, like buy great businesses that I would want to own. And I just think whether you're in 10 years, if the economy is priced in Bitcoin, cans of tuna, US dollars, Chinese yuan, I think an asset with factories all over the world pumping out the most efficient EVs with the least resources, also managing the best battery technology and being able to produce the most energy storage systems and having a fleet of millions of robots, that's going to be probably the world's most valuable asset. And I'm just describing what Tesla is in 10 years. And so I'm super boring buy and hold investor, and super picky on what businesses I buy. And I just, winners win. Elon said it himself. He's done like 100 fundraising rounds in his history. He's never, like, every single one's been a success. And I just think Tesla, the world's super chaotic, but I think the technology they're developing, even though we're huge, is still under monetizing. Like, they developed the 4680 cell, all this charging infrastructure, but the truck hasn't really hit the road. The semi truck, the cyber truck, the van, the robo taxi. Like, I still think we're 10% of where Tesla could be, from 2 million to 20 million vehicles sold a year. And it's just boring buying a great business. And I think as long as we get Elon incentivized to keep hustling and innovating, then that's a business I want to own. And I see it having the potential. I don't know, biggest company in the world, that's tough, but a few $1 trillion if they pull that off. Yeah. So that's kind of, my take on it is, I think we're going to look back and be like, people are going to look back in history and be like, you had the chance to invest in Elon Musk's companies. Like, that would be like just such a gift that you could invest along the smartest CEO in the world. So, yeah.
Well said,
Mic
Gal.
drop.
Well done. Before we wrap this up, before we wrap this up, Herbert, could I quickly just ask for a second? With about 20 friends, Tesla friends, we're organizing a visit on the 19th of February to the Kennedy Space Center. It's a 4-hour visit. We're going to have a private bus, a private tour, and a lunch with one of the astronauts that was up at the space station. So it's Donald Thompson. It's very well organized. It's $299 per person. We're not making any money on it. This is just, the price it costs. And there are still 20 spots available, but we need to give them the final number in about 5 days. So it's all on my Twitter feed, on my X feed. Sorry about that. So if anybody wants to still sign up, there's still room. We're having a DM chat now on it. Lots of people very excited. Lots of famous Tesla people there. So it's going to be fun to meet everybody. We're meeting the Sunday evening in Orlando for a dinner. And then on the Monday, which is President's Day, we're going to have that 4-hour morning tour and lunch. Thank you very much for allowing me to do that.
It's a fun place. I did a day-long space camp there about a year ago with the wife, and it's a really fun place. So people should definitely look into it.
And it's actually Jose, who I like Tesla's, who organized it, who went there already lots of times. So he knew all the little tiny things that will make this very special, and very excited. For me, it's going to be the first time. I'm going to bring Tesla Boomer Papa, who loves space. So that's going to be fun.
I mean, that should fill the whole thing up right away. Now that you put that billing out there.
I got the astronaut. It's Papa. We're going to meet the Papa. Gali, thank you very much for joining us. You have a very refreshing outlook. You think differently, but you've succeeded because of that. You've got your HyperChange media empire. You've got your HyperGuap fund. You got your 2 VC Bros show. People need to watch that. It's very, very funny. Really love the way you think, right? I'm going to create my own sitcom to promote my VC fund. Just scheming.
Multi-threat.
Real quick, Gali, how would you, if you were Elon, what does the next year look like in terms of selling the story of the next leg of growth?
I think if I'm Elon, I'm building as much support to figure out how to get control of the company. Like, if I'd be doing exactly what he's doing. Go on Twitter, get support. I know it's controversial, do it in the open, but I think that adds chips to his side of the table. And I think he's making, and just like do whatever it takes to get control. And he has all the powers in his court. And it's this interesting catch-22 because he's levered to Tesla stock. So if it crumbles, that's bad for him. So there's just, but I feel like this is the moment for him to negotiate. He should own more of the company. I want to give him a lot more control. So I feel like he should just focus on getting that control. He probably knows a lot. I love the ideas of like selling a little, letting Tesla invest in XAI or Starlink, or like, I like these crazy outside of the box ideas. I also want to say I love this show. I'm a new fan of the show today. I had a blast and all y'all are awesome.
Come back.
Yeah,
Come back.
thank you for having me.
We were kind to you. Wait till Christian really tells what he really thinks.
Original CyberBull.
He would go, "You put Coinbase and Tesla?"
No, I know
He'd be-
Coinbase is a big thing for him. We'll get into that. If he ever comes back, we'll get into that another time.
Do come back,
Okay.
Gali, please.
Thank you so much, Gali.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for
Brilliant
coming
show. Lots of information that was shared that I didn't even
Lot of
know,
fun.
even though we've been talking quite a bit. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.